Hi everyone, welcome back to our series on Adex preps. This video will be about full ceramic crown prep on tooth number 9. Let's get started. Take a minute to pause this video and read the criteria that we're required to follow. This is how the prep should look like from the palatal view with the corresponding measurements. Before I start the prep, I make a putty impression that will be the main guide for reduction. I then cut it faciopalatally into two halves, mesial and distal. First step is to mark the tooth. I grab a probe and measure 1.5 millimeters from the adjacent tooth using articulating paper. These two lines define my inner proximal axial reduction. Since I don't want to surpass 2 millimeters, so I gave myself a 0.5 millimeter margin of error. The first burr I use is a 0.14 red double striper shoulder for facial reduction. Since my aim is to have 1 millimeter of facial reduction, I measured the diameter of my burr, which is 1 millimeter. So I aim to prep the depth of my burr, and it will be guiding me on how much to initially reduce from the tooth. The facial reduction is done on two planes. As you see in the video, I reduce the first half of the facial, then the second half while defining the margin high. The next step of this prep is to break the contact and do inner proximal reduction at the lines I marked earlier. The burr used here is a 0.12 shoulder burr. Since the burr I'm using is already tapered, in order to keep my taper from nearly parallel to less than or equals 12 degrees per wall, I always keep an eye on the orientation of the burr, keeping it either straight or slightly angulated. I keep the margin high, above the gingiva to keep space in case of any errors and for smoothing it later on. I switched to a 0.14 red shoulder burr to further define my margin. In order to prevent undercuts, always keep the burr contacting the tooth surface fully or mostly, especially while working on the margin. Now I move on to the palatal surface. I'll be using a 0.14 red chamfer burr that will initially guide me with the measurements for the reduction. Again, our aim is to reduce 1 mm from the surface on two planes. Here, I'm reducing the first plane, making a distinct line that I will later join to my second, in order to reduce my cingulum. Using a red 0.14 shoulder burr, I lightly define the margin on the palatal surface, and here I also define it high at the beginning. Always keep in mind to keep the burr parallel to the long axis of the tooth. I continue smoothing the margin on facial, inner proximal, and palatal, removing any steps and joining the margin all around. While doing that, my margin starts getting lower and lower. Now, I do the incisal reduction using the same 0.14 red chamfer burr, making two grooves, each is 1.5 millimeters, then joining them together and rounding the corners. It's time to move on to the second plane of palatal reduction, using 014 red chamfer burr. Previously, I created a step reducing plane 1. Now, I'm removing that step while reducing plane 2 to achieve the required cingulum reduction of more than or equals to 1 millimeter but less than or equals to 2 millimeters. With a 016 red shoulder burr, I lowered the margin, keeping it smooth, uniform, with no unsupported enamel, and rounding line angles while doing that. Here, I checked the facial reduction with my pre-made putty to see if my reduction is uniform and acceptable. I saw it wasn't, so went ahead and reduced more. We want to make sure the reduction is either equal along the surface or slightly increasing moving towards the incisal edge. I use an enhanced cone rubber polishing burr to polish all the surfaces, from facial to palatal including the incisal. I switch to a rubber polishing disc for further rounding of the line angles. I now get a polishing strip that has been vertically cut in half to polish the margins proximally and remove any slight remaining unsupported enamel. I grab a probe to check the taper, smoothness, and if there is any leftover unsupported enamel. I take the putty for a final complete check of facial, palatal, and incisal surfaces. Last but not least, I check my inner proximal reduction with a probe which has to be less than or equals to 2 millimeters. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe for more videos.